Welcome to the Retirement Guy Podcast with Gary Alden from the Kingwood Investment Group. In this podcast, we educate people in or near retirement so they can make informed decisions and bridge the confidence gap. Learn how to mitigate risk in retirement so you don't run out of money before you run out of you. Join Gary Alden and explore strategies on how to live a stress-free retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Retirement Guy with Gary Alden from Kingwood Investment Group. Today we're going to be talking about retirement plan distributions. And this is something that anybody who is in retirement stages or getting really close to retiring needs to know about. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good morning, Eric. We are just fine.
All right. Well, we are well into 2019, going like gangbusters, and now we're going to be talking about retirement plan distributions, which is something that everybody needs to be aware of. And from what I understand, a lot of it happens toward the end of the year, but there's a lot of planning that needs to be done toward the beginning, I'm assuming, as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is a timely topic, but before we get into that too much, I know you got a trivia question for me, and I'm going to try my hardest not to let you stump me this time, Gary.
Okay, Eric. Here's today's trivia question. Who is the only person to ever be inducted into both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the National Inventors Hall of Fame? So the only person to ever be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame up there in Cleveland, Ohio, and also the National Inventors Hall of Fame.
Inventors Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I would say I know he's pretty brilliant. I know he is incredibly accomplished. And I think I remember hearing something about him doing some like inventing or some pretty creative work. I'm going to guess Eric Clapton. So that's my guess.
You're absolutely wrong.
All right. I didn't expect anything different, to be honest with you. So let's get on to the topic, retirement plan distributions, and I'll hear the real answer at the end of the podcast.
There you go. Retirement plan distributions. You know, you, me, everybody else, Eric, we're going to work long and hard a lot of years. And one of these days, we want to start taking our money out of our 401k plan, IRA account, Roth IRA, wherever we have money parked for retirement. And you want to do it in the most tax efficient way. So we're going to discuss some of the most common planning strategies today. And again, before you do anything we talk about today, because everything we talk about is in general, please talk to your tax professional or your financial advisor to make sure you're on the right track.
And I want to remind the audience, I want to remind everybody who's listening that, again, Gary is very well connected. I know he's got some professionals within his office, but he also is highly connected in the community with other professionals. If you have somebody that you need to talk to about these things, you can contact Gary and he can point you in the right direction.
That is correct, Eric. And you know, when you start taking this money out, you are making crucial decisions pertaining to the rest of your life and your retirement plans. And in a lot of cases, these decisions, once you make them, cannot be reversed. So you could cause harm to yourself and your family if you make the wrong decision. So the 4 objectives we're going to try to cover today. One is compare retirement plan distribution choices. Also discuss strategies to help you remain financially flexible after you retire. Minimize taxes and avoid penalties on your retirement income. And also explain some of the basic rules for early access to your retirement funds.
All right. Sounds good.
So one of the most common things people have, a lot of people have what's called a defined benefit plan or a pension plan. So pension plan is a more common term, or defined benefit plan. It's the same thing. Now, these are employer-sponsored plans. They are tax-deferred savings vehicles. They can be offered by a public or private company. They normally do not require anything of the participant to make any kind of investment selections or decisions. And at the end of the day, when you retire someday, the company promises to pay you a specified monthly benefit to all eligible employees. And they look at number of years of service and other factors, how much money you made while you were working at the company to finally come up with the actual dollar amount. So again, most people are more familiar with, say, getting a pension from being a teacher or working for a federal government or a state government or a lot of private companies offer pension plans also. Now, some companies will offer you a lump sum. So instead of taking monthly payments, they'll offer you a lump sum distribution. And again, when taking this over the years, I've seen a lot of people make a lot of expensive mistakes when it comes to this area. So again, sit down with a professional financial advisor, your tax person, somebody that really understands the rules and regulations here to make sure you don't make a mistake. And there's a whole bunch of options if you do take a monthly check. One is, are you going to take it just on your life? Are you going to take it based on you and say your spouse's life? And there's other options too. And it can get very confusing. Sometimes I look at some of these plan documents and I get confused, and I do this on a routine basis. So again, make sure you sit down with somebody who knows what they're doing so you don't make a mistake.
Hey, Gary, quick question on that. You said lump sum, and then you were talking about I know there's a monthly payment plan. And of course, you said that there's options between just you, or you program it or make it so it's during your lifetime and your spouse's lifetime. Is there a total to that as far as in that pension? I'm sure maybe there's a variety, but when you say lump sum, that obviously means there's one amount. On the monthly plan, is there one amount? So if you pass and then it's also programmed for your spouse, if your spouse passes, is there something remaining in there that would go to your heirs, or are they just done paying?
Well, when you take a lump sum, we just did one here within the last 30 days, and a gentleman had a choice of getting about $620,000 lump sum, which is what we finally decided would be the best. And you can't always say taking a lump sum is the best. You got to look at situation by situation. But in his case, he took a lump sum. If he had taken a monthly check, since he is married, we would have taken it over both his life and his wife's life. Now, the problem with that is that, let's say it's Bob and Mary, and Bob chooses to take a monthly check. And let's say he's been getting checks for a couple of months, and he and Mary are both killed in a car wreck. There's nothing left for the kids.
Oh, see, that's what I was wondering. Wow, that's not good.
So that's why most people, when given a choice, I think the national statistical number is around 92%. Most people will take the lump sum because, one, you have control of the lump sum of the money, so you can control where that money goes. And then it also, if both mom and dad die young, there is a legacy to leave the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm assuming the tax implications for a lump sum are a little bit more than if you were taking a monthly pension, but that's exactly what you're talking about. You got to consult a tax professional to know what's best for your own situation.
Exactly.
All right.
So we've discussed, pension plans, say from your employer or a government entity. There's also the more common thing, and that's defined contribution plans. Keywords here is contribution. That means you as the employee, you're contributing. Now, most people know these as a 401k plan, 403b plan, a SEP IRA, a simple plan, and there's other things out there. But the most common 401k plans and 403bs that are offered many times through school districts. So here, you are responsible for making the investment selections. So normally a 401k plan, 403b, they'll give you a choice of normally mutual funds, and you can put your money in there on a bi-weekly basis. Benefits are based on how much money you put in, maybe a matching contribution from your employer, and of course then less expenses. And then of course you can have gains and losses. There's no promises in a 401k plan like there is in a pension plan. So when you do leave retire or leave the company, you have several choices. One, if allowed, you could leave the money in the company plan. You could transfer, let's say you're changing jobs, you could transfer the money from your old 401k plan to your new 401k plan if the new 401k plan will allow it. You can also transfer the money to a traditional IRA. That's what most people normally do when they leave a company. They put it in an IRA account. You could choose to say, hey, write me a check, send me a lump sum distribution. But of course, then you're due to pay taxes on that lump sum. And again, if you're not 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty for taking an early withdrawal. And then some 401k plans offer annuity payments. like a pension annuity that you would get from a company, and you could choose to say, get a monthly check the rest of your life. Not all 401k plans offer that option, but some do.
So if in that situation, it becomes kind of like a pension. However, you would still assume that there's a lump sum that's still in there if both mom and dad pass. Is there still something in there?
Nope. If you choose the annuity option, it's still depending on if you pick, say, you and your wife, long as one of the two of you is alive, you'll keep getting a check. But again, if both of you passed away early, and there would be no legacy to the kids.
Okay. Good to know.
Now, there's a couple of terms that a lot of people don't understand, and sometimes they're used interchangeably, which is wrong. And that is the term rollover or transfer. A transfer is when you move IRA funds directly from one IRA custodian to another IRA custodian, and that's what's called a transfer. And again, there's no taxable event when you move the money from one custodian to another. Then there's a term called a rollover. A rollover is when you move the money from your employer-sponsored plan to an IRA. And again, there is no tax penalty when you do this, as long as it's done properly.
Mm-hmm.
The problem comes in if you tell your 401k plan to make the check payable to you. By federal law, the employer must withhold 20% for taxes and then send you the remainder. Even if you plan to put that money into an IRA account, you messed it up by having the check payable to you, so that 20% goes to taxes, so you only have the remainder to put in your IRA account.
And I'm assuming if you're under 59 and a half, you'd also get penalized.
Correct.
Oy.
So make sure you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing on this, to make sure you don't make a mistake and cause yourself to maybe pay a bunch of money you shouldn't have to be paying. The other thing we see a lot is people that have a lot of their company stock in their 401k plan. It's very, very common for people that work for the XYZ Corporation and have a bunch of XYZ Corporation stock in their 401k plan. Nothing wrong with that, except when it comes time to retire. If you do have a lot of company stock in your 401k plan, you want to sit down with a financial advisor and figure out if it's a good idea to do what's called the net unrealized appreciation method of moving that stock to a brokerage account to avoid having to pay a bunch of taxes on the money. So let's just say, for example, you have a bunch of XYZ stock in your 401k plan and you move that stock to an IRA. When you take that money out of the IRA, you're going to pay ordinary income tax rates, which are the highest tax rate. However, if you would take that same stock, put it into a brokerage account, now you're looking at paying long-term capital gains. And for most people, that's going to be a lot lower tax bite. Now, there is a catch. When you do take that stock and put it in a brokerage account, whatever your cost basis is on that stock is treated as ordinary income that year. But the remainder of the value of the stock, once you do sell it, is going to be treated as long-term capital gains. Again, when you do this, it's called NUA, or net unrealized appreciation method. It is something that can save you a lot of money on taxes. And the lower the cost basis is, in other words, what you paid for that company stock, the lower the cost basis, the more advantageous this might be to do. But make sure you talk to a tax professional or a financial advisor that understands all the nuances in doing a net unrealized appreciation method of transferring assets. Make sure it's done right. And I will tell you this, in the last 6 months, we've done 2 of these. And both of the 401k plans we talked to didn't know how to do it. We had to explain to the 401k plan how to do it, which I was just flabbergasted that the people at the other end didn't know how to do it properly. So sometimes even your 401k plan, if the person you're talking to has never done one, sometimes they're not even sure how to do one. So sometimes maybe you need to talk to a supervisor.
Yeah, Gary, this really drives me bananas. I mean, this is what is so difficult for people to maneuver and figure these things out, because you don't know what you don't know. And then the fact that the people that should know don't know, that kind of compounds the problem. So I appreciate the information you're sharing. I appreciate your team and what you do. I'm not trying to just plug you here in the middle of the podcast, but it really bothers me that there are so many hoops that people have to jump through just to get their own money that they've worked so hard for. So where should somebody start with that conversation specifically? The net, I believe it's net unrealized appreciation, something like that. If they don't even know what questions to ask, should they talk to a tax professional first, or someone like you first, or their HR department? Who should they be talking to?
I wouldn't talk to HR. Lots of times they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of tax people have never run across a net unrealized appreciation. Really, more so, your financial advisor is going to come in contact with this strategy more often than your tax person or HR department. And again, both the ones, and this flabbergasted me this past year, both of the net unrealized appreciations we did, or method transfers in the last 6 months, were both household name corporations. Which I cannot believe. I was the first person to ever call this company and said, I want to do an NUA. Wow. Just one of them I could, I won't name on the podcast, but
let's not.
I am in their store all the time because I'm a male.
There you go. All right. Bed Bath & Beyond. Got it. I'm just kidding.
There you go. One of the things we kind of mentioned here was annuity income.
Uh-huh.
And annuity income is a very misunderstood statement. If you get a Social Security check, that is annuity income. If you get a pension check, that is annuity income. If you go out and buy a private annuity from an insurance company, those are all different annuities. And of course, you got lots of different choices. Your name, joint and your wife, joint your wife in 75%, joint your wife 50%, period certain, life was certain. There's all kinds of all these little different terms. And again, that's when you sit down with a good financial advisor and discuss what's going to work in your particular situation for your retirement income, not your next door neighbor, somebody else, but what's going to work for you.
Got it.
Another common thing we see, Eric, is something called in-service withdrawals. Keyword here is in service. This means you're still working for the company. Say you're working for the XYZ widget company, and you are not 59 and you have attained 59 and a half, but you're still working there. Most 401k plans, not all, but most, about 70%, will allow you to take all your money in your 401k plan and roll it to an IRA account once you've reached 59 and a half. So you're still working there, you're still in service, but hey, I want to drain my 401k plan and put it someplace else. Mm-hmm. And you might ask, why would you want to maybe do that? Well, lots of times you don't like the choices in the 401k plan. Maybe you've got too much company stock in the 401k plan, or maybe you've sat down with a financial advisor like me, and we want to go ahead and implement your retirement plan early, go ahead and get the ball rolling. So lots of times, again, several times a year, we'll move money out of the 401k plan, go ahead and get their retirement plan in gear, maybe years before they actually retire. Maybe they're going to retire when they're 66, 67, but at 59 and a half, it allows us to come in, take the money out of the 401k plan, and then position it for a retirement plan for long term.
So Gary, in a case like that, do they have to completely, you said drain the 401k, do they have to take everything out? Or, I mean, does that effectively close down their 401k option? Because I know a lot of companies will match, and I would assume that you'd still want to be putting in so the company is matching you and so on and so forth. They don't have to completely close it down, do they?
No, you could take all the money, you could take partial.
Oh, okay.
And you're still going to be enrolled in your 401k plan. So if you took all the money out today, 2 weeks from now, when your paycheck comes around, they're going to be deducting money out of your paycheck, putting in the 401k plan again.
Got it. Okay. That sounds great.
We did this with my wife when she had 59 and a half. We took money out of our 401k plan. And then what we did, we just did it annually after that till she retired. So we started 59 and a half and did it for like 4 or 5 years. Just on an annual basis, we took the money out.
That's great.
Now, Eric, I think you told me you were 33, 34, something like that.
Mid 40s. Let's go another decade. Okay. Will be good. Yeah.
So let's just say you had enough money at age 35, 40, whatever it is, you had enough money to retire. That would be a pretty nice little deal.
That would be great.
There you go. There's a problem in there because, again, the federal government says if you're not 59 and a half and you take out money before that, say you're 45 and want to retire, you owe a 10% penalty. Where there's a way around that, and it's called using the IRS code section 72T. And 72T says if you take equal and substantial distributions from your 401k plan, basically what they're saying is if you start out at, say, $25,000 a year, you take out $25,000 every single year from the time you start, let's say age 45, until you reach 59 and a half, or 5 years, whichever is longer, you don't have to pay that 10% penalty. And there's 3 different methods for doing it. There's the RMD method. That's required minimum distribution method. There's the fixed annuitization method, and there's the fixed amortization method. And again, they all have a little bit different nuances in there. Again, sit down with your financial planner and decide what you want to do. I've had a lot of people do this over years that were lucky enough to have saved and been in a lucky position, maybe worked for a company that went public and they made lots and lots of money. So it is a strategy for taking money out of your 401k plan, not having to pay the 10% penalty. This also works on your IRA account or 401k plan, either one, 403B. Lets you take early withdrawals and not pay the 10% penalty. But again, sit down with your financial advisor to make for sure you're not messing it up.
Does that change, or does that get altered, or is it affected if, let's say I did retire at 35 and by 45 I'm bored, right? And so now I'm going to do like what I do now. I do consulting and coaching with businesses. I decide, you know what, I'm going to take that back up. So 10 years later, I decide to crank it back up, and I'm earning an income again. Does that affect what happens with my distributions, or as long as those are consistent till I'm 59 and a half, it's okay? Or how does that work?
No, as long as you're consistent taking the same money out. But it does bring up the question. Let's say you're 3 years into this and you're taking $25,000 a year, and you decide you go back to work and you say, I don't need that 25,000. You're stuck with taking the 25,000 to your 59 and a half. Or the flip side of that, what if you say, hey, 25,000 isn't enough. I want to take 35,000. Well, the government will let you take 35,000. However, they will now invoke the 10% penalty, not only for that year, but all previous years, plus currently 5% interest on the money.
Oh my goodness.
So it could get draconian if you ever change the rules. Now, there is one exception. A guy went to tax court, getting a little bit here in the weeds, but years ago, this guy went to tax court and he says, hey, let's just use the example of $1 million, and he's taking out 50,000 a year. So he's taking out 5%, 50,000 of $1 million that he's taking out every year. So he's taking out 50,000, 5% of $1 million. Well, 2008 came along.
Oh boy.
Stock market went down. So let's just say his account went from $1 million to 500,000. Well, if he keeps taking the same 50,000 out of 500,000, he's now taking a 10% distribution. And if you look at any studies historically, that is not sustainable. He'll probably run out of money. So this gentleman went to tax court and says, hey, I want to lower the amount of money I'm taking out under Rule 72T. He wanted an exception. The tax courts said, hey, that makes common sense. So they let him do it, not pay a 10% penalty, but it's now become a rule for everybody that you can change your 72 distribution once while you're taking it going down. You can't change it going up, but you can change it going down to make sure you don't run out of money.
Well, good for him. He helped everybody out.
He did help everybody. And there were private letter rulings that come out all the time. And that's what he got, was a private letter ruling that later the IRS adopted for everybody.
Awesome. That's great.
And the last thing I just want to touch on here is your required minimum distribution once you hit age 70 and a half. I think we've talked about this before on other calls, but I don't think you can emphasize it enough. When you reach 70 and a half, you've got to start taking money out of your IRA account, 401k plan, 403b, any of these qualified accounts, you've got to start taking money out whether you want to or not. If you fail to take out how much ever you're supposed to take out, let's just say I was supposed to take out $10,000 this year and I failed to do so, the government will penalize me 50%. That's 50%. So if I was supposed to take out 10, the government's going to penalize me $5,000 plus my normal taxes, whatever tax bracket I'm in. So let's say I'm in a 25% tax bracket, $2,500 for my taxes, $5,000 for the penalty. Only $7,500 of my $10,000 would go to the federal government. That seems fair to me.
Yikes.
So don't forget your RMDs. We work on it year round at my office. One of my team members, Jill, that is one of her number one jobs because we've got a lot of people over age 70 and a half as clients. She starts working literally the first week of January, making sure everybody takes out the distributions. You've got 12 months to do it till you start January 1st, and you've got till December 31st to take it out. But you don't want to forget to take it out because of the massive potential penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's beautiful that your team does that. I've got a buddy that works for a very, very large firm. I won't say exactly what name it, but it does start with a T and a D. And he works in a call center, and they got about 265 calls on the 31st of December of people saying, I need to do RMD. And so they had a lot of work to do that last day. And it's good that your team is helping people to do it all along the way, so there's no last minute panic or the shuffle of, oh my goodness, I forgot to do it. So that's great.
There you go. So we've covered everything I want. There's more to really cover than we talked about today. Eric, I mean, when I do my workshops over at the college, the section we went through here today in about 20 minutes, I spent about an hour on because it's so important. And there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts depending on your particular situation. So again, talk to a very good financial advisor, understands this, or a very, very good tax professional who understands all the little ins and outs, ifs, ands, and buts, and nuances of taking money out of these different plans.
That's great. That's good stuff. All right, now I'm ready. You said I wasn't right with Eric Clapton. I'm going to do another guess, by the way. I know because of his musical talent and the different things he created instrument-wise. Is it Prince?
You're wrong again.
Oh, doggone it. Okay.
The only person to be inducted in both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the National Inventors Hall of Fame was a very, very famous guitarist by the name of Les Paul. And anybody who's ever gone to buy a guitar has heard of Les Paul because there's Les Paul guitars you can go and buy. And Les Paul, again, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because of his musical talents, but he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for inventing the solid body guitar.
Wow. Right on. And I know that the Les Paul guitars are highly sought after and pretty amazing. I've never played one, but then again, I don't play guitar, so it would just sound like a dying cat, I suppose.
Yeah, one of my sons has one he paid about $8,000 for. So
wow.
Anyway, it can be expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gary, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic.
Enjoyed it.
All right. Hey, and thank you all for listening to the Retirement Guy podcast with Gary Alden. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Gary comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And I'm going to challenge you, if you have questions about what you heard today or questions about any of the other things that you've heard on the podcast that we've done, please email Gary, email his team those questions, and we'll cover those questions on a future podcast. Gary, can you actually give them your email address or a good email that they can send questions into?
Sure. They can either go to our website, www.thekig, thekingwoodinvestmentgroup.com. So www.thekig.com, and there's a place to ask questions. We get virtually every week, we get 2 or 3 questions through the website, or you can just email me directly. It's gary.alden, A-L-D-E-N, at thekig.com. Gary.alden at thekig.com.
Awesome. Email those in, contact them through the website. Your questions can be put on a future podcast. We will keep it anonymous. It's not going to have your name or anything. But if you have a question, I guarantee somebody else has that same question out there. So please don't be shy. Email those in and we'll get them taken care of. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Kingwood Investment Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Guy podcast. Click the subscription button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Kingwood Investment Group. The content has been made available for information and education purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions that you may have regarding your investment planning. Kingwood Investment Group is independent of Next Financial Group, Inc. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, Inc., member FINRA/SIPC.